Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Colin Bird, Executive Chairman of Xtract Resources. Welcome back, Colin. How's things?
Good, thank you. And how's things with you?
Yeah, busy as ever, busy as ever. I'm sure you're still busy as ever.
Are we? By Joe, we're extremely busy. Whichever front you look on, we're very, very busy.
Sure. So we've just seen an update from the Fairbride hard rock gold mining operations at the Manica Concession in Mozambique. Do you want to tell us more?
Yep, I know that people have been concerned. Is this operation going well? How badly has those two cyclones affected us? And I don't think it's any secret. No matter where you go in the world, the weather patterns have changed. And the rains this year, they started early, they finished late, and they were horrendous. So I think what that confirms, which we're in a very hostile environment with atrocious weather. Month on month, we've grown. Quarter on quarter, we've grown. And the figures are beginning to look quite good and quite impressive. And at the moment, we're just getting into the hard rock. We've stripped off most of the superficials. The pit is beginning to take shape. We've developed a grade protocol. It wasn't easy when you've got various mineralization types. So the protocol, it was quite a job to develop the protocol, but that's working quite nicely. And the results are showing it, that we're now producing 123 kilos we reported for the first quarter. And of course, we told the market that we're now going to produce in full quarterlies. And those full quarterlies now, we're comfortable to do that because before, what was pre-capital what wasn't pre-capital, what part of the pre-strip would be capital, wouldn't be. Stocking up the warehouses with reagents in a difficult-to-get reagents, let alone price environment. And so now we're stabilized. We're a mature, not mature, we've got a way to go yet. We're a producing operation. We're on profit and loss accounting. And so next quarter, I'll be happy to say that we'll be reporting tons, grade, share, cost per ounce, attributable income to Xtract.
Yeah, so 123 kilograms we worked out was somewhere in the region of 1,380 ounces over the quarter. So 317 ounces, 23% of that was 317 ounces per month going to Xtract. And you were talking to us before we started there, you're having all-in sustaining costs of about $700 an ounce, sorry?
That's the sort of figures you're looking at. Yeah, as I say, we at this stage, we're talking kilograms of gold we produce, and we've boiled it down to cost per ounce. And our target, quite frankly, is a little bit, it's more aggressive than that, but it's a safe working figure that you're using.
Yeah. So you're talking about $300,000 to $400,000 in dollars of profit to Xtract them per month going forward.
That's right. That's about what's that? 4,448. Yeah, you're talking 5 to 5.5 million. The figure. That's what the current figures say. Yeah, and obviously better. Assuming everything works for us. But it's looking a very promising operation.
Yeah, and what's happening in the world then? Are people starting to wake up to the fact that there's not enough copper out there and starting to...
we're seeing, Glencore's having a go at tech and other things have happened in the space as well. You're going to get lots of M&A activity around nickel, copper and all of those good things, copper in particular. But M&A activity doesn't make new metals. All you do is divide the current production up among different players. And so nothing's changed in that absolute shortage statement that 24, 25 will see the start of a supply deficit. And quite frankly, as M&A is useful because if you can't produce a mine tomorrow, you've got to go and buy one. So once the mines are all bought up and you've had a rejig it in the top end of it all, there'll still be a shortage for copper because that doesn't make new copper. So I think my forecast of a couple of years ago of intense M&A activity when the analysts are saying, well done, X company, well done, Y company, excellent results, nice returns, good dividends, but you haven't got a sustainable, this isn't sustainable. Because I looked at your metal inventory in the back of the annual report, and I see it declining very rapidly. Where's your new metal coming from? Where's your new projects? And that's where I really see, and I'm forecasting, and I'll forecast it again, the land grab, if you like, the company grab to basically projects which are in production, in a year, 2, 3 years, being bought up by the majors, and also large exploration projects being bought up by the majors. But a large exploration project which comes into production in 2032 is not a lot of use to you either. So anything which is going to throw out copper in the next couple of 3 years is going to be much sought after. So in actual fact, in terms of production, the bar is lowering quite a lot. The company used to talk about 2 million, 3 million tons of contained copper. I think if you've got an operation coming into production with 300,000 tons at 30,000 tons a year, say, of copper, or even lower than that, 20,000 tons of copper, you are sitting on a prime premium project. If I look to our stable, we're pretty endowed with big exploration grounds and mines which are imminent.
Sure. I mean, just coming back to that story, Colin, it was very interesting, the one you mentioned, the Teck Resources, obviously, who are a FTSE 100 mining company, and they rejected a hostile acquisition bid from Glencore, and that would have resulted in a $91 billion natural resources giant. And I think the idea was Glencore were trying to spin off their profitable coal business, because there's a lot of people having a pop at them for thermal coal is not particularly in favour, as you know. One would have become Coal Co, and then would have been a separate metals co, which would have included the oil trading business. But the idea was to build a company called Glentech, and that, as you mentioned, it would have been the third largest copper producer in the world. And Teck shares rose, I think, about 15% after the announcement. Why do you think Teck rejected that hostile acquisition?
Because they know, same as we know, the big boys are out there, and the bigger, let's face it, much bigger than Glencore, out there looking for assets now, because organic growth isn't on the cards. And they too, feel that there's a lot more value in the company than Glencore was offering. And that's the main reason why, there's strategic reasons, there's pure money. But I'm imagining Teck are pretty sure they can go it alone. Knowing the management of Glencore, they're a very, very astute bunch. And Gary Nagle is as astute as it gets. And so he will always spot the opportunity, and he will be first in line. So I don't think that story's over yet.
So, Colin, just give everybody a recap. Where is the copper situated in the Xtract portfolio? We've obviously got the situation in Australia. Give us a little bit of update on that if you can. What's happening, I think, in Zambia, you have some assets. Tell people who don't understand where is the copper going to come from?
Well, in Kukui, that's our new Zambia project. That's doing very well. We've stripped it. We would have been in production 2 months ago, but we went into what was a very small situation with a view to cleaning it up and probably having 18 months production. We cleaned it up, sure enough, and then we saw an opportunity. We saw a trend. We followed that trend. We did some basic exploration. And now that trend is 2.4 kilometers. We've had a long on strike. We've had a big pushback, and now we've revealed the ore body, and we're shaping what is now a meaningful pit. Some of the ore is as high as 3.5% with good grades of cobalt as well. It's generally hematite hosted. And but the average grade, I guess, is about 1.5%. So we'll handpick in the short term, and then we're putting up we'll stick in an upgrading plant, so we can upgrade it, say, 4 times. And we'll be taking a 4, 5, 6% product to nearby processing capability. So Kukui, that's going well. We're quite happy with that. And then in Australia, we're halfway through the test for that very critical business of pre-concentration. Pre-concentration is mentioned wherever you look nowadays, but we've now got the mass reject and the paid reject, if you like. We know which goes with which route, and then we're doing on the final phases of saying how much copper goes along with the waste and how much copper goes along with what we think is the ore route. And I did quote in my last RNS that the company, which is basically by all sorted, retaining 87% of its metal, but losing 50% of its mass, so everything gets much smaller, whilst you don't suffer the loss of too much copper. And of course, that's what we're hoping for. But it'd be premature for me now to give you a forecast, other than say the phase 1 part of the trial has been done. and we're now into seeing which way the copper is flowing. So it's exciting times again, finger biting nail times, but it will be so important to the project to actually get this one pinned out, because it manifests itself on the shape of the ore body, how much of the material comes into ore, how much stays out, what's the final tonnage, what's the capex. It will go into the capex argument. Obviously, the capex will be lowered significantly for part of the plant, for the tailings, for a lot of the infrastructure. The energy cost will go down. So all in all, it's it's a crucial report, and we're waiting now to, as I say, to determine which way the copper goes. Having sort of on our various grades, starting at 0.2, going all the way to 0.6, we now know how it separates waste ore, waste pay dirt, as we think, and now we've got to see what the copper retention is in the pay dirt. I suspect that's not much more than 3 weeks to a month away. So that's really the key copper story. And of course, we're on the lookout in Zambia, as we always have been for years, for new small copper projects. Colin was supposed to be a small copper project, but he's showing lots more legs than that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Colin. What are we sort of looking at? What do you see in the future? Do you see 5,000 tons of copper for 10 years? Do we see less than that, more than that? What is Kukua?
Oh no, I mean, we're not building the future on Kukui. Kukui is just one relatively small mine of many. We're actually in that general area. We're looking towards building a central plant ourselves and getting feed material from local miners. And but it's getting, the Zambian situation is unraveling very quickly. You'll note that Bill Gates, Bezos investment, where they put an investment into the company. They are in Zambia with it, and they've made several acquisitions, and along with others, and quite sophisticated artificial intelligence modeling, it's been established that the copper belt was seen to be the main driver, the only driver in Zambia, and there'd be other little peripherals, maybe an IOCG, maybe, but in actual fact, I think, to wind the clock 5 years forward, you might see that the traditional copper belt model is completely challenged in central Zambia, and that there are big occurrences. You will see on the west, it's pretty much the same, and then on towards Mufulira. And we've proved in our African Pioneer, of course, that Congolese Kamoa and Western Forelands and Kolwezi, all of those geological systems extend their way down into Zambia. And so I think that the geological model of Zambia, I've said it, I've said it and I'll say it again. I was fairly confident quite a few years ago that Zambia was never overexplored. It was just the fact that, you developed a mine in 1920 and 100 years later it's still going. There's not much incentive to go chasing concepts. And that was the case and is the case. But Zambia, I think, it's you think it's a crazy statement to make. But Zambia is hardly touched. I think Zambia is going to yield some big mines, rich mines of the old type, or the old school that they used to produce. Because, up at Kamoa, you're around about 5.5% copper, second richest one mine in the world, I think it is. So everything bodes well for Zambia, and we're bang in the middle of it, pursuing that small, let's call it a small mine, but anything from 5 to 15,000. 15,000 at $10,000 is 150 million, so that's not a small mine by anybody's standards. A company with a revenue of 150 million, making 60-odd million a year profit, that's not a small business by anybody's standards. But those situations are available, and will be brought into being, I think, in the next 2 or 3 years, because there's no way the world has got time to build some Escondias, which take 15 to 20 years to build, will be in 2040. And the copper shortage is starting in 2 years' time. So the old dynamics of copper production, copper exploration are changing. And I think Zambia is the centerpiece, one of the centerfolds of it all.
So do you see that Kukua will be producing within 12 months? You think you'll have a copper production?
God, it's producing now. But what I need now is to get a plant in there so I can gravity separate. And then the choices and the flexibility could become greater to transport the material. Because if you can upgrade it 4 times, then obviously more options become available to you.
Okay, very good. So is that all the copper? What else have we got in Xtract?
They're the two copper projects, and at the moment, you know what the copper mission is. Australia is very much depending on, well, not very much depending on, but will be very much enhanced if that gravity sorted works out the way we expect it to work out. And then we're on with our business of developing going mine and finding similar type situations.
And the Furbride gold, what sort of time frames are we looking at in terms of how long of a mine life is that likely to have?
Oh, yeah.
Are you finding anything else?
I mean, if you look at the reports, it's Furbride itself is over 1 million ounces made up of sulfide intermediate zones and oxides. And so, the next thing is that we put a sulfide plant in so that we can, probably a flotation circuit, so that we can do some gold concentrate. So that means we can handle all types of ore. So the current proposed production levels, that mine's got a future of, let's face it, I mean, that would be 50 years at 20,000 ounces a year, wouldn't it? So we're going to obviously, once we get settled down, comfortable, the production has to go up, because we don't want the mine to last 50 years. And of course, we're drilling and exploring and confirming in the area. So I think that old Manica district, what we've done with getting this plant going is we've unlocked it. And now we're setting the geologists to work to keep the oxides going for longer and making sure we can get the transition zone in as well, hopefully with the same circuit, whilst we engineer a sulfide circuit and a float, we'll probably go into a flotation circuit. I don't think we go to bio-leaching. It's looking very much like flotation. So it's a long life project. It's not a short project. But a lot of money going into that project as well. So, and now's the time to get some return for everybody, all shareholders.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the overall situation that you've got in Xtract at the minute, and you've got, in the coming time, you have between $4 million and $5 million a year that's going to be coming in regularly from Furbride, and potentially that could increase or decrease, obviously, if the gold price goes up or down, obviously. And you've got a market cap of 12.4 million. So to me, it looks like everything else in that share portfolio is absolutely free, because Furbride's going to pay for your market cap and more. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. But you interview every CEO on the AIM market now and ask him his life fair, and he will tell you it's not. It's not very fair. And let's face it, the expectations on Bushranger, there was an element of disappointment when we came with the pre-concentration decision. I think people wanted a boxed up project ready for the off, when in actual fact there was more work to be done and possibly even more exploration to be done. We'll see when we get the results of all this. So there was an element of disappointment. I think that could, that disappointment, if you factor it in, should not have taken us to where we are. But of course, during that interim phase, you've got a war in Ukraine, massive inflation, and geopolitical uncertainty. So a lot of events outside of our control have got us to this point. But you're right, if it's certainly not fair value. But as I say, show me a chief executive who says his company's fair value at any time, let alone now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you take Bushranger aside, and obviously, yes, you have spent a lot of money on that, but just for the sake of argument, take that aside. Look at what's happening with the gold now, and, potentially you're already producing ore in Kakua, and it's going to keep on upgrading itself and producing you money. Then you could be, in a year's time, looking at revenue, and I mean profit revenue, of the market capitalization per annum of Xtract right now.
Yeah, revenue or income?
Income.
I thought you was going at the exactly. I mean,
no, revenue is already the case, because you're already having revenue from.
I'm going to say, this is a growing model and growing rapidly. I mean, if you're trying to say that, if you're suggesting that the market cap is justified, throw Bushranger away. The market cap is justified by present mining capability. Obviously, it is more than covered by current operating capability. But that's not the point. Bushranger is one of the world's is the biggest discovery in the Lachlan Fold for a long time. Bushranger's got, and I think people have turned their backs on the fact that Bushranger's got 1.3 million tons of contained copper. Bushranger's got to the northeast. Extremely good potential. To the northwest, there's other potential. And there's areas which haven't even been explored yet. So put all that together. Bush Ranger is no dead duck. It's just that we interrupted the program to basically add value to it. And it wasn't taken well by the market when there was a flood of uncertainty from other areas. And I think that when we announced that, people were not looking for problems. There was enough problems out there. And the decision of the board to do the pre-consultation was rather taken badly when it might be the best thing we ever did. Time will tell, when we get the report. So we are in bad times, Kevin, and Phil, we are in bad times. But I tell you what, it's the longest I've ever known. It's the longest period of difficulty I've ever known for the emerging resource players. And yet it's against the backdrop of the best fundamentals I've ever seen. Now, ask me to explain that. You've got me this time, because I can't. I cannot explain why copper is where it is. If you roll the clock back 10 years and look at the copper curve, and where we're sat and where other copper would-be producers, companies which have got good projects, are all sitting in the doldrums with 70% of their market cap eroded. So you explain to me how that can possibly be. Because the model used to be very simple. Commodities up, then the majors would, be in there reporting good earnings, and we'd be a call option to the commodity.
Yeah.
Now we're not facing a bit of a commodity. We're not facing a situation where the commodities are having a few days in the sun and it's their turn in the cycle. We're facing a new industrial revolution. And I've said before, wars were fought over oil, and wars will be fought over copper, could be fought over copper. Very interesting that the other day, Janet Yellen and the Vice President of the US were down in Zambia. Don't you think that the US have recognized that China have got a real upturn on them by investing in infrastructure over the last 20 or 30 years, calling in that infrastructure debt? So, America now is playing catch-up at places where they know the copper is going to be. And there's such a massive spotlight on Zambia, it cannot be true. I mean, Zambia is the place to be. Everybody knows it. The train's full of folks, planes are full of folks with new ideas, bucket loads of money. But the reality is that there's not much ground in Zambia. And now most of the companies that are on the ground in Zambia are busy exploring, and there's a frenzy of activity.
Well, we've said it before, and we'll probably say it until we're blue in the face. But one day, Colin ultimately will have called it right, won't we?
Well, yes, we called it right in 17 going on copper. We didn't get much credit for that because copper really took a bit of a tumble. We called it the EV story right. We forecasted this merger and acquisition frenzy right. We called 2024, 25 right, because people much bigger than Colin Bird, all the big stars in the industry, Anglo-American, come out and say, where's the next lot of copper coming from? The guy said it a few times, as the new CEO. Gary Nagle has come out and said, I don't know really where the new copper's coming from.
Yeah.
The BHP said, if we stick to our model of only going into reliable jurisdictions where there's existing copper mines, if the board sticks to that, we might actually have no copper in 20 years' time. So every one of them, Trafigura, are actually forecasting $15,000, I think it is. So it's not just one isolated crackpot. That was me, I think, at one stage. But there's quite a few.
Who's that isolated Jack? Who's that isolated nutter then? Is that who we're talking about?
That could have been me. That could have been me in 2017. I think that could have been that could have been me. But there seems to be quite a few well-positioned analysts, investment banks, major mining companies joining in the chorus.
Pleasure as always. I think we've put the copper world to rights, and I think we'll just say, Colin, thanks very much for your time. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Happy Easter to you all and all our shareholders, of course, and all our listeners.
Yeah.
Thanks, Colin. Same to you.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.